Okay, we're live again. This is round 2 of our General Assembly candidate forums. And so I wish everyone a good evening and welcome to the Rhode Island Senate District 35 Candidates Forum. I am Elizabeth McNamara, editor of East Greenwich News. We are presenting this forum tonight with support from the East Greenwich Chamber of Commerce. The questions I will be asking tonight are culled from those submitted by our readers. We will start with opening statements from each candidate, followed by several rounds of questions and some room for rebuttal. The forum will end with closing statements from the candidates. Now I will bring, one other little thing. If I wave this, it's to tell the candidate that I am, that they are bumping up against their 1 minute or 2 minute time limit. So just so you know that. And here we go. Here is Charles Callanan and Bridget Valverde. Welcome to you both. Thank you for making the time to be with us and to be here for the viewers. Because we're using alphabetical order, that means Charles Callanan, C, gets to go first with opening statement. Oh, and just to reiterate, I will be muting people just because of feedback issues. I'm not anticipating a rogue event here. It's really for the quality of the audio. And everybody will have a chance after the questions to have a rebuttal if they desire. So again, now I'm going to mute Bridget and myself. And Charles, take it away. You've got.
Thank you. Thank you very much. First of all, I want to thank the East Greenwich Chamber of Commerce and you, Elizabeth, for running this, and thank you for Senator Valverde for coming and having this debate. First, for the people who don't know me, I am Charles Callanan, and I am running for State Senate District 35. My background is I am a former naval officer. I attended Villanova University. I also attended University of Colorado, Colorado Springs. I served 15 years in the United States Navy in combat tours around the world. I am now a CEO of a veterinary group, which grew up from a family business that I started nearly a decade and a half ago. And I've been in Rhode Island now, which is now what I call my home. And I've been here since 2006, living in East Greenwich. And I was asked several months ago if I would run. And quite frankly, I was not overly thrilled with the concept, because I knew what would happen if I did, is that I would throw myself entirely into the situation and go forward. Rhode Island is in a tough place, a very tough place. We're in a situation where our state is essentially broke. And the current General Assembly has completely abdicated its responsibilities in allowing a sitting governor to rule the state by fiat. And even before the COVID pandemic, our state was struggling. We rank nearly at the bottom of the list at every economic factor you can possibly imagine. People don't retire here. People don't live here. The minute their kids graduate from college, they're gone. And that's the stuff that I want to fix, because I love this place. We have coastline. We have a great city. We have wonderful neighbors. And that's why I'm here, and that's why I want to run, because I want to save my home.
Thank you, Charles. Bridget, hold on. You are up.
All right. All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Bridget Valverde. I'm your state senator. I just want to thank everyone for being here tonight. Thank you, Elizabeth, for organizing this, along with the Chamber of Commerce. I think it's really important for everyone to be able to hear where we stand on things. So in 2018, I ran to bring some change to Rhode Island, to bring some change to the State House and work hard for everyone in East Greenwich, North Kingstown, South Kingstown, and Narragansett. I told you I would fight for public schools. I would fight to protect reproductive rights. I would help address the climate change crisis in Rhode Island. And I told you that I would work for common sense gun safety. And I am really proud of the progress that we have made together in my first term. We were able to increase funding for our public schools, and we made some progress on education reform as well. I was proud to sponsor and pass the Right to Read Act to help our kids get the reading instruction they need to become strong readers early. And we also passed, after many years trying, the Reproductive Privacy Act to protect reproductive rights here in Rhode Island, no matter what happens in Washington, which, as you know, is more important than ever right now. And so right now, the priority is obviously to help Rhode Island get through this pandemic. We need to support our schools. We need to protect our health. We need to support our small businesses so that we can all make it through this really tough time that we are all in right now and all struggling with in different ways. So I have loved representing all of you at the State House in the Senate, and I hope to continue doing so for another term. And I look forward to answering all the questions that you have here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Bridget. The first question goes to Bridget. So, I mean, it will go to both Bridget and Charles, and then Bridget will have an opportunity to rebut if she wants to. So many of these questions are similar to the ones I just asked. There will be some changes, but this one is similar or the same. How do you rate Governor Raimondo's handling of the pandemic, and what role should the state Senate have right now?
Sure. So I would rate the governor's handling of the pandemic very highly. I think that most Rhode Islanders would also agree with that assessment. As soon as it became apparent that this was a serious public health crisis, Governor Raimondo, she took action. She convened her public health team at the Rhode Island Department of Health, led by Dr. Alexander Scott and many other epidemiologists, to make sure that we were using the best science in order to protect Rhode Islanders' health. She closed down our schools, which she definitely should have, and impose some guidelines to help Rhode Islanders stay protected and slow the spread of COVID-19. I think that her stepped reopening of the economy was done very well. Obviously we are seeing a spike right now in cases again, and so I think that we will, she will respond appropriately. As for the Senate's role, we still have to pass a budget for this fiscal year, and we need to make sure that we pass a budget that is going to help Rhode Islanders recover, that is going to aid our recovery here in Rhode Island, and make sure that we're making investments in things like in housing, in job training, and helping our small businesses rebound.
Thank you. Got to unmute and now mute. Charles, the same question to you. How do you rate the governor's handling of the pandemic, and what role should the state Senate have right now?
How would I rate this? I would rate it virtually an abysmal failure. And I'll explain to you why. First of all, we recognized the fact in the beginning of this crisis that you did have to shut everything down because we didn't really know what we were dealing with. And that's true. But as we moved along, we soon discovered who the at-risk population was. And in any pandemic, you don't generally isolate a healthy population who needs to do all the heavy lifting. We did not, you don't put sick patients in nursing homes and then isolate them, okay? We don't continue this 7 or 8 month point where we're at right now, where we have basically locked down the economy. And then when you get federal aid, and as everybody knows, I hate calling it federal aid because it's your tax dollars, that doesn't get distributed to the very businesses that are being shut down by this. And at this point now, it's far too late for a lot of them. Supply chains have been disrupted. Employees are gone. They've left the state. These businesses have gone bankrupt. Our restaurant industry is absolutely decimated. So this is an abject failure of an ability to move quickly and react to situations as they evolve. Now, the role of the state legislature should have been to put checks and balances in this and to make sure that this money was effectively put to the people that actually needed it, which in this case, it wasn't. And it is a very disturbing situation, okay? At this point right now, the median age for somebody who may pass away from COVID is 77.7. We know who the at-risk people are. We know how to deal with this. We need to get our economy moving again. Not to mention the ancillary problems with this, with people that are dying from suicide, depression, the ability of wellness visits that aren't being accomplished. We're not diagnosing cancer anymore. Women aren't getting breast exams you're not getting your teeth done. I mean, these are horrible things that are just going to get worse.
Okay, thank you, Charles. Bridget, would you like to do you have a rebuttal?
Sure. I mean, I say this is a situation that nobody could have anticipated, and I'll reiterate that I think that the governor has done a great job. Shutting down businesses, I'm sure it's a decision that nobody takes lightly. And with everything that we know about COVID and how it spreads, it was the right decision to make. Chad suggests that we just, get rid of these regulations, that we open things back up again. I wonder does he really believe that people are all of a sudden going to just flood into restaurants and things like that, knowing what we know about COVID? It will not solve all of our problems.
Okay, thank you. Bridget, you are up. No, Charles is up. Sorry. Now I'm going to get all confused. Let me mute you. And the next question first goes to Charles. Rhode Island is considering legislation to ban new assault weapon sales, limit firearm magazine capacity, and require safe storage of firearms. Which of these measures do you support?
Okay, am I unmuted? Okay.
You are unmuted.
Yeah, none of them, because first of all, assault weapons in this country are already banned. By definition, that's a selective fire weapon, and they're already heavily regulated by the federal government. You need a Class 3 license to own one. So no, I don't support any of those measures. It's a limitation on freedom. It's a limitation on our Second Amendment rights. And you certainly, if you're going to have a First Amendment, you need a Second Amendment to support it. I can't hear you.
Thanks. Sorry about that. Thank you. And we'll go to you, Bridget.
All right. So could you repeat which pieces of legislation you're talking about?
Ban new assault weapon sales, limit firearm magazine capacity, and require safe storage for firearms. Which of these measures do you support?
Sure. So I support all of them. And I have been proud to advocate for their passage in the Senate. We do have a crisis of gun violence in this country. And it's not just, it includes accidental deaths by firearms. It includes firearm suicides. The safe storage bill in particular is, I think, very important to me. We have, kids get a hold of firearms that are loaded, that are stored improperly in homes all the time, and, accidentally shoot themselves or other family members. If somebody is contemplating suicide, having easy access to a firearm makes it that much more likely that they will succeed in their suicide attempt. Gun violence is something that touches all of us. It has certainly touched my life. And I think that we should be doing whatever we can to curb its effects in our society today.
Okay, thank you, Bridget. Charles, would you like to, do you have anything else to say on this
Yeah,
topic?
certainly. I'd certainly, ask the senator, why she thinks magazine capacities are important, or some of these other sort of feel-good legislation items, because they certainly aren't. I've had extensive training with firearms. I've employed firearms in my life, and some of these legislation measures just simply don't make any sense. When you limit the ability for somebody, for example, magazine capacity, most gunfights are extremely violent and extremely short. And a lot of things happen. Your musculoskeletal reaction is very slow. And usually people, this fantasy that people die when you shoot them in the leg or you shoot them in the shoulder, and that's it. That's not what happens in a gunfight. As I said, they're very violent and they're very short. What we have in this country is not a gun problem. We have a culture problem, a culture of easy violence, a group of people that think it's easier to solve a dispute with a firearm than it is to have a discussion. Okay? Anybody who knows anything about firearms or uses them, this is the last thing you want to be using. We need to fix the problem, which is culture.
Okay, thank you for that. Charles? All right. Next question. We'll go to Bridget first. I'm keeping a timer. I'm trying to figure out who's on first. Thank you for bearing with me and making sure we're unmuted when we need to be unmuted. So to you first, Bridget, do you think a member of the Senate, in this instance, Erin Lynch Prada, who is on the short list for a position on the state Supreme Court, should be exempt from the 1-year revolving door ban on politicians taking state jobs? Hold on, let me unmute you. Bridget, you go first.
I do not think that she should be exempt. No, I understand the arguments that that some people are making for why she should be able to seek a seat on the Supreme Court. And my answer is there is another opening coming in a year. Probably another retirement has been announced, and if she wants to be considered for that, I would support that. But I don't think that we should have a revolving door for people serving in state government to go on to appointed positions.
Is this to me now?
Grr. Yeah, it's to you now.
Okay, sorry.
Go for it.
Sorry, you weren't there. The question is, should we allow this? No, we shouldn't. In the 70s, we had a revolving problem of judicial incompetence or corruption that we should not have allowed this. And there's a reason that this ethics rule is in place, so that people that were just serving aren't going to start ruling for people that they were just doing business with. It's simply inappropriate. There should be a distance involved there, so that this sort of corruption, which has definitely been here in Rhode Island for way too long, does not continue.
Okay, thank you, Charles. Bridget, do you have anything else you want to add about that? Okay. Hold on. All right.
I just wanted to comment that it has been a pleasure to serve with Senator Lynch Prada, and I would never characterize her seeking a seat on the Supreme Court as corruption. I think that she did seek an opinion, an ethics opinion, and she was cleared to seek the seat. But I think for extra, transparency's sake, that she should not, and at this point in time.
This mute stuff is going to kill me. Okay. Charles, you get to go first next time for this next question. What should the General Assembly be doing to encourage businesses to locate here in Rhode Island?
Okay, well, as you know, I'm a business owner. And as the things stand now in this state, there is zero chance that I would ever build anything here again if we don't change, okay? We have a system of corruption in Rhode Island that is absolutely the absolute opposite of what you need to bring in small business. We are overregulated, and I'll give you a clear example. Just recently, my own company, and it starts at the slowest levels, that I'm replacing a sign, okay? And I have to go through and this is a repair, and I have to go and get an engineer to go tell me how I can replace a sign and have them, and then it inevitably adds more cost to the job, another $5,000, okay? So this is the type of thing that happens at the very local level. And if we don't start reducing taxes, we don't start getting government out of people's pockets and let entrepreneurs do what entrepreneurs do, which is create things. Government doesn't create anything, okay? They're great. We've been using the average citizen in this town as a piggy bank, and it simply can't continue anymore. You want to get businesses to come down here, get government out of the way. I do business in multi-states, in places where they come out to help you. What can we do for you, sir? How can we get these employees working? That does not happen in Rhode Island. I've had discussions with tax people here that said, well, it's our money. And I'm like, well, no, it's not your money. It's my money. I earned it. I didn't see you here working alongside me. And it's that mentality here in Rhode Island that government is the all-seeing, all-knowing master of everything that goes on here. That's just simply inappropriate. Okay? And again, I wouldn't do business here, but we need to change this. This is part of the reason why I'm here, so that we can start shrinking government. We need a desk audit. And if COVID has shown us anything, we can see what we can live with and what we can live without, okay? And that is the only way it's going to happen. You add that, okay, and we give people a proper education, and then we have jobs for them to go to after the fact, then all of a sudden this state's going to change.
Okay, thank you, Charles. Bridget, same question to you.
All right. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. We talk a lot about trying to attract businesses here to Rhode Island. And so, we have to talk about what are the things that make businesses want to locate here. And obviously, number one is a great education system. And that means from, pre-K up all the way through, college. So we need to make more investments in our public education system. We need to better fund URI and RIC and CCRI so that we can have a workforce that companies can employ they're getting the most up-to-date job training. We have been underfunding, and in particular, our state institutes of higher education for years now. And, now we see kids that are, instead of going to URI, they're going to go to a state school in a different state because it's actually cheaper. So if we don't fund those schools and get our tuitions down, we are going to see, talent leaving the state. But, companies that move here, they need their workers to be able to find housing. And, right now we have a serious housing shortage here in Rhode Island. So we also need to make more investments in affordable housing and just housing in general and create a permanent funding stream for that housing. But we also need to try to grow businesses here from within Rhode Island and grow new industries. One thing that I'm really excited about doing is investing in renewable energy infrastructure here. That will bring so many jobs. And jobs that will last for generations as we transition our economy from a fossil fuel-based economy into a carbon-free economy. We should also be supporting food production right here in Rhode Island, supporting our local farms, and encouraging food production here. So we have a lot of work to do to grow businesses in Rhode Island, but I'm committed to doing that work.
Okay, thank you. Bridget, Charles, do you have any rebuttal?
Yes, I do. Here's something that you might want to notice, that what are we doing wrong? Universities don't create jobs. They're sitting on millions of dollars of real estate that they don't pay property tax on, and they're sucking up services. That's not creating jobs, okay? When companies look from the outside and they see that our General Assembly disappeared for 6 months and didn't do anything for them when they needed them most, that's a big signal. You're standing on the outside and you look at that and you go, there is no way that I'm going to come to that state with the way that they got treated. This place is a hostile environment, and the attitude up on the Hill has been that way for a very, very long time. And unless we start voting in some change and start disrupting things and stop voting with labor all the time and giving people giveaway jobs at the State House, the government shouldn't be the largest employer in the state. That is utterly insane.
Okay, thank you, Charles. Let's see here. Next question goes to Bridget first, and that is, Rhode Island has miles and miles and miles of beautiful coastline, including in Senate District 35. But that also makes us vulnerable to sea level rise with climate change. What should the state do to protect our coastline? And you are.
So, climate change is real, and we are already seeing the effects here in Rhode Island. Warming seas, rising sea levels, increased storm activity has caused additional coastal flooding. It is changing our coastline. We are losing houses and buildable land, which means that we are losing tax revenue. So we do need to do something to tackle that crisis. That's why I support the Act on Climate 2020 bill that is sponsored by Senator Oyer in the Senate, and I believe Representative Blazewski in the House, that would move us towards renewable energy by setting legally binding and enforceable carbon emission reduction targets to move us to a net zero carbon emissions by 2050. We cannot just keep on, throwing our hands up and saying, "Oh, climate change," and then not do anything about it. Rhode Island has already shown to be a leader in clean energy production. We have the nation's first offshore wind farm, and that is wonderful, but we need to do a lot more. We need to invest in solar, more wind, we need onshore wind in order to reach those renewable energy goals. Once we build that infrastructure, we will also be keeping our energy dollars right here in Rhode Island. We purchase almost all of our energy from outside of the state. So we are just sending that money out of state, every year. And so let's keep those dollars here. Let's build some renewable energy jobs here and move Rhode Island into a clean energy future.
Okay, thank you, Bridget. Charles, to you, our beautiful coastline, but we are suffering some of the effects of sea level rise. What should the state be doing to tackle that issue?
Well, I'll tell you, one of my tours of duty was with the National Science Foundation in Antarctica. And we used to do core drillings, deep drillings to check out changes in climate and to see what the effects are. And I can tell you that I wasn't a scientist, I was a communications officer, but I got to listen in on these things. They had science talks at all times. And they really don't have a particularly good hand on this. They know that there have been various changes. As to what those changes are and why they're occurring, that's still an evolving study. However, when you look at our coastline, some of the things that we should be looking at in terms of protecting that is ensuring that building isn't being taken place on places that was occupied by maybe seagrass or in our wetlands, because wetlands are natural filters for what's going on out there. And when you start building on that and you get an encroachment in places like that, that's when you're going to start to see more climate change. Additionally, this is also at a much higher level, and certainly we can contribute to it on the local level. But you need to get polluters like Indonesia, like China, like India, who have far greater impacts on climate change than the United States. The United States is leading the way in many ways. I've been in countries you can't see through the air in the afternoon. But in Rhode Island here, we should be looking towards absolutely keeping our coastline clean, making sure that, again, those building codes are up to snuff for when you do get storms. And those are the types of things that we should be doing.
Grr. So I said, thank you, Charles. And then I said, Bridget, do you have a rebuttal?
Yes, I would just say that, yes, we do need on a global scale, action on climate change. But, the US is the biggest contributor to carbon emissions in the world. And so we do need to start right here at home.
Okay, thank you for that. Next up is Charles. And the question is, do you support the state's 10% affordable housing mandate? I can hear that echo, so I'm going to mute you, Charles, until I'm done. Do you support the state's 10% affordable housing mandate and the comprehensive permit tool developers can use to speed such projects along? Should the state be doing more? If so, what?
Okay, first of all, the question is why you even need to create affordable housing. Again, it goes back to people migrate to different communities for different reasons. And one of the things, when you look at our downtown in Providence, when you see the incredible violence that's going on in some of those neighborhoods down there, because quite frankly, nobody wants to work in a shooting gallery, okay? There are many downtown areas in other cities and in other states that people flock to and they want to go to, and there's lots of housing available just by its nature. You also have to look at impacts as to how this is going to be achieved in places, for example, like East Greenwich, where there may not be the ability to share services, or there may have an impact on sewage, may have an impact on water. So how do you go about creating this? It goes back to our economic condition, okay? If we are business friendly, more people come here, more people spend money, the job market expands, you make more money, there's more opportunity. And so then the requirement for things like affordable housing certainly go down. And you certainly have to have the ability to, in places where it is built, to make sure that it actually is affordable. It isn't that in name only. But again, you want to solve a housing crisis, start with creating an economy that allows people to come here and create work, and let the free market take care of it, and it will take care of itself.
Okay, thank you, Charles. Bridget, to you, the same question. Do you support the state's 10% affordable housing mandate and the comprehensive permit tool that developers can use to speed such projects along?
Sure. So I do support the 10% mandate. However, it is clearly not an enforceable rule. We have only a couple of communities here in Rhode Island that actually meet that threshold for affordable housing. And yes, we have a huge lack of affordable housing here in Rhode Island. For families that are just starting out, it is very difficult to afford even a starter home here in Rhode Island because our available housing stock is so low. We have not been building enough. We have not been building at the density that we need. in order to meet the needs of new families here in Rhode Island. We have an aging population, and people are, thankfully staying in their homes. We should be making it easier for seniors to stay in their homes for as long as possible. But that also means that we do not have housing availability for young families or for people who just want to rent. So creating a permanent funding stream, as I mentioned earlier, to invest in affordable housing here in Rhode Island. And also, on the municipal level, changing some of our zoning laws so that we're not requiring such large, minimum lots for housing in some of our neighborhoods. And as for the comprehensive permit tool, I assume you're referring to the ability to kind of count other housing units.
No, actually, it's the ability for them to fast track. Sorry, I didn't explain it too much, but instead of having to go through like zoning, town council, and planning board, this gives them an ability to just go to the planning board, which will meet all those needs. So it's faster.
No, I mean, I do not support that. I think that when we're talking about development, in our communities where we have, obviously limited land to build on, I think that we should be vetting developments as much as possible and getting as much public input, as much opportunity for public input as possible, so that things aren't just slipped through by a developer with a ton of money.
Okay, thank you, Charles. Do you have anything more to say on this topic?
Yeah, I think the other concern is you're taking authority out of local municipalities to know what's best, and you're not taking into account the impact that increased amount of children in schools, which again is going to increase the amount of services required, police forcing, public works, all the above. And additionally, why aren't trailer parks considered part of creating affordable housing? Because certainly it is something you could act on almost immediately. And again, it also goes back to we need to create a more job-friendly environment in Rhode Island. And then we don't have an affordable housing problem. What we have is we have not enough housing, but that's a better problem to have.
Okay, thank you, Charles. Let's see here. The next question will be Bridget first. In recent months, we've seen a widespread call for action to end police violence against Black people, as well as a wider conversation about how systemic racism has worked against Black people and hurt our country as a whole. What should Rhode Island do to address this issue? And also, do you support the Black Lives Matter movement? Hold on. Thank you.
All right. Yes, I do support the Black Lives Matter movement. Right now across the country and in Rhode Island and in my town here in North Kingstown, people are protesting and they are calling for racial justice. They are calling for equality, and I absolutely support those calls. Ending systemic racism is a big job. It starts at home. It starts with educating our children about the true history of our country. It starts with having them respect everyone, but there are some concrete steps that we can take to end systemic racism. We can end unequal enforcement that disproportionately incarcerates communities of color. We can do things to improve economic equality through access to jobs, raising the minimum wage, improving access to healthcare, so that people can lead full, healthy, happy lives, and they can afford to live. I'm just thinking about something that happened here in North Kingstown just 2 nights ago. One of my friends and a candidate for school committee, she had painted BLM on some rocks outside of her house. Black Lives Matter, after having a few Black Lives Matter signs stolen out of her yard. And somebody took it upon themselves the other night to go and spray paint over that Black Lives Matter sign at her home because they felt so compelled to do it because I guess they don't believe that Black Lives Matter. And, it's that kind of thing that, we need to stop here in Rhode Island. People need to stop denying that systemic racism exists, and we need to deal with it seriously.
Okay. Thank you, Bridget. Charles, to you. What should our state be doing to combat systemic racism? And do you support the Black Lives Matter movement?
Okay. First of all, I value all life. Every single life has value. And when you look at an organization like Black Lives Matter, which has been an avowed Marxist organization, one of their founders was a pardoned bomber who blew up military installations in this country. I'm sorry, but I can't get behind the movement behind that. Okay? My own family is racially mixed, and this certainly has caused a lot of tension in my own family. And we have different opinions on this, but we all get along on it. Well, not always, but in terms of systemic racism, you have unfortunately have a group of people that are creating a disproportionate amount of violence. And the other fact, and this is from the FBI statistics, the greatest threat to a young Black man is another young Black man. So what are we doing about this? How are we changing a culture where single parenthood is revered and fathers are absent? And I mean, some of you I know have children, what it's like trying to raise young men to be men. And that's a very difficult situation. We have to find a way to get to that culture and change it and bring it up and have value, that everybody has value. By the same token, we'll look at policing issues. Now, if you're a police officer and you're working in a bad neighborhood and you see the same things over and over again, I can imagine you're going to get kind of jaded. And there's no question about the fact that in some cases there are some bad folks working in law enforcement, like any large organization. That's just the way it is. But we need to be able to get rid of those people when it happens and do it effectively. Police officers and anybody who holds power, certainly over life and death, needs to be held to a much higher standard. And so we need this to come together. We need, on one hand, we need to help folks get out of the endless cycle of poverty, which leads to violence, which leads to death.
Thank you, Charles. Bridget, do you have a rebuttal or anything more you'd like to say?
I mean, I would just say that I'm sort of appalled by this sort of all lives matter attitude that Mr. Callanan is expressing here. We've had centuries of racial oppression here in this country, and to lay the blame for violence at the feet of people who for generations have been oppressed is just, I mean, it blows my mind. Okay,
I guess that's that. The next question, Charles, that's you first. And how important is civility in public discourse and on places like Twitter?
That's a good one. I think that trying to police people online is like trying to herd cats. It's simply not going to happen. We have lost the ability to be civil to each other. And in this hostile environment, with certainly progressivism, I largely blame for this. It's my way or the highway. Do what I want 100% of what I want. This inability to give it all in their position, there's no give in this at all. And I literally can't stand it. I think there's and we have long since lost the ability, where there were Tip O'Neills and Ronald Reagans. Even though they came from different sides of the fence, they were able to go in and hammer out an agreement, okay? We need to get offline, put our phones down, and start walking next door and start treating each other better, okay? The folks out there, and I know there's some hardcore internet bullying going on there. And people, you know, they are not being held accountable for the words that they say online. They simply aren't. And they think they can get away with anything because we live in a civilized society. You also tend to be, because these are not crimes per se, they get away with these types of behaviors, and there's really no consequence to it.
Okay, thanks, Charles. Bridget, to you. How important is civility in public discourse and on places like Twitter?
It's very important. And, you know, contrary to what Mr. Callanan has just said, I do not think we have lost the ability to remain civil. You know, I manage to do it every single day. I have never been called out for saying, you know, racist or misogynistic things on Twitter or on Facebook. And, you know, if you take a quick look at Mr. Callanan's Twitter page, you will see that that's what he likes to do, is to say inflammatory things and call especially women dummies and idiots, and just, you know, troll around generally on Twitter. You know, we just the other day, one of my constituents in East Greenwich posted a series of screenshots of really appalling content that Mr. Callanan had shared on his Facebook pages, different pages that he manages, of pictures that he had taken of women and saying really awful misogynistic things, saying racist things. And, you know, it's gross. And so, you know, for most of us, we do remain civil. We can have a conversation, we can come to a consensus on things without resorting to name calling, without resorting to like really base attacks on people. So yeah, I think that civility in all arenas is incredibly important.
Thanks, Bridget. You know what, Charles? I'll bet you have something you'd like to say. So you get a rebuttal.
Oh, I certainly do. First, I'd like to ask the senator, first of all, do you think it's okay to be a bully? Do you think that's okay? Do you think it's okay to impersonate people online? Do you think it's appropriate where my personality, my photographs, my children have been threatened? I've received hate mail at my home when I wasn't even running for anything, okay? And the thing that you're referring to wasn't me. And in fact, if your organization, those progressives, are going to find somebody to do a hit job on me, you might want to find somebody with a slightly shorter criminal record that didn't drive down the middle of a Main Street.
You know what, Charles, I'm going to mute you if you start defaming somebody that isn't part of this conversation. I understand that you can explain. I'm happy to have you explain what it is that they're taught, that Bridget was referring to, but no personal attacks, please.
That's not a personal attack. It's a fact. It's public knowledge.
You know what? Let's focus on this issue. If you want to explain what Bridget was referring to and explain your side of it, that's great.
And the fact of the matter is, the page it's referring to was not mine. I started a page that was meant to be in jest about a phony backyard bar, okay? And then, which stood up there for 5 or 6 years. It was open to the public, and I did not post the things that she's referring to. And then some individual decided to take my photographs and put them into this conglomeration to perform a hit job on me. The fact remains that I requested a state police investigation from Justine Caldwell and asked her to help me with this 2 years ago. Because today, right now, there are half a dozen accounts that have my name on it. and it simply isn't right. So for this type of behavior to occur, they need to start looking at themselves.
Okay. Bridget, well, we'll move on. We will move on from there. I have a question for Bridget and then a question for Charles. So we'll start with Bridget. You supported the Evergreen Bill, which keeps the union contract in place after it has expired until a new contract is signed. But the East Greenwich Town Council did not. Why did you support that bill?
I supported that bill because it was the right thing to do. One thing that we have all learned over the past, 7.5 months is that our teachers are incredibly valuable. They're incredibly stabilizing forces in our children's lives. And they are, quite frankly, superstars. When we went to distance learning abruptly last spring, our teachers jumped into action and did the best they could to provide distance learning for our kids. So I think that they deserve the respect of a continuing contracts bill that doesn't change anything about the way a town negotiates contracts with their teachers. They're still allowed; they can still negotiate them the way they always have. All it does is give the teachers protection to continue with their contract in the instance that a city or town decides to not negotiate in good faith with them, but prevents them from being able to make unilateral cuts without their input. So that's why I voted for it.
Okay, thank you. Because I did this earlier, Charles, do you have any rebuttal or any comment that you want to make about that particular question before I ask you yours?
Well, I think the problem is that you took the one thing that towns had the ability to negotiate with. And when you look around, the entire state didn't want you to do this. You voted for it anyway. You took the teeth out of the ability to negotiate. So now, with many of these bloated contracts, they just go on and on and on. And what is the biggest problem in this state is pensions. They are going to collapse. It is a fact. That's what the math says.
Okay. We could do an hour on pensions, and maybe we should, but we're going to keep moving right now. Charles, Bridget Valverde introduced legislation in the Senate at the behest of the East Greenwich Town Council that would allow for the town to charge different residential and commercial property tax rates. If you had been in office, would you have done the same? Hold on, I think I need to unmute you. There.
No, I would not have done it, because having different tax rates for different people and organizations is simply unfair. Because if you own a business in a particular town, chances are you may not live there and you don't get to vote and you don't have any say over this. So your effective tax rate continues to go up and up. This was a bad move because a small local business would simply pack up and leave. And it's just another in a long list of things that this hopelessly out of touch General Assembly continues to do, finds new and different ways to tax us out of existence.
Okay. Thank you. Bridget, do you have a comment?
Sure. I mean, I supported that bill and helped to pass it through the Senate because the town council wanted it. And it was done in conjunction with the Chamber of Commerce. And so that means that local businesses were on board with it. It also allowed the town council to hold the line on taxes for residents, something that I know is really important to the residents and the council in East Greenwich. So, yeah, I wouldn't have done anything differently.
Okay, thank you. I think we're going to move to our lightning round. These are short answers, and you'll both get a chance to answer them. And because Charles got the last one, we will start with Bridget. Bridget, do you trust mail ballots?
I do. And I actually saw our wonderful Secretary of State, Nellie Gorbea, this morning. I think she is doing an amazing job running our elections. Our elections are secure, our mail ballots are trusted, and just in case anyone needs to know, you can drop off your mail ballot at the East Greenwich Police Station anytime in the secure drop box that has been provided by the Board of Elections.
Okay, thank you. And we'll go to Charles. Do you trust mail ballots?
No, I don't, because during the recent presidential primary, over 9,000 ballots went missing. The ability to commit fraud here is enormous. Okay, when you don't have a countersigner to prove that this has been done, with a two-person integrity, which is extraordinarily important. Also, the need for them. I mean, certainly you can get an absentee ballot, which I am absolutely fine with. I think those are wonderful things. So, and or you can go down to your local canvassing office and walk in and vote privately. So I don't trust this system, especially now that this was heaped upon a mail service that is, quite frankly, isn't prepared to deal with it. And I think the potential for fraud that we've seen, around the country, where ballots are winding up in trash, or they're not going to the right person, they're going to people that are dead, or they're not even living in the state anymore. So unless you even want to talk about mail ballots, at the very least, we should be scrubbing the ballot list here, the voter registration list here in Rhode Island, which clearly hasn't been done.
Just from my own reporting, I have found it is scrubbed after a few different presidential election cycles, but the idea is that you don't want to disenfranchise voters by scrubbing that list too early. But we will go on. The next quick one. Charles, you get to go first on this one. Do you support removing Providence Plantations from the state name?
No, it's pointless legislation. It's man hours wasted on something that we're rewriting history. Plantations has nothing. The word plantations does not have anything to do with slavery. It's simply a word.
Okay, hold on. Thank you, Bridget. Do you support removing Providence Plantations from the state name?
I do. And I find it strange that Mr. Callanan thinks that plantations is not associated with slavery. I think that if you say the word plantation to almost any American, they'd say, what do you associate with that? And they'd say slavery.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Last question. We'll go Bridget first. A current political office holder you admire?
Ooh, there are so many. Let's see.
Near or far? But we'll stick to the U.S.
Okay. Let's see. I'd have to go, right now, I'd have to go with Kamala Harris. She has been an amazing senator. Also, when I lived in California, she was the Attorney General, and she did a great job there as well. I think that she will be a wonderful vice president, and as you can see, I have my I voted sticker. I voted this morning early, and I happily voted for Biden and Kamala Harris.
I voted too.
Woo!
Yeah, I voted at town hall today. So, all right, thank you, Bridget. And now to Charles. Name a current political office holder you admire.
I think that would have to be Senator Ted Cruz, Princeton law professor, Harvard Law Review. The ability to take complex issues and break them down to the common man, to make it understandable. An absolute pit bull. He worked on domestic foreign policy in the Bush administration. The man is highly educated, highly learned, and very skilled at what he does. And it would be my hope that I could emulate him in any way possible. I think he's an absolutely admirable figure and somebody to look up to in this country. Okay.
Thank you, Charles. With that, we are going to move into the closing statements. And Bridget, you get to go first because you were second last time. So Bridget, take it away. You have up to 2 minutes.
All right. Well, I will be brief. So just thank you so much, Elizabeth, for moderating this panel tonight. It has been very illuminating. I'd also like to thank East Greenwich Chamber of Commerce as well. It has been a true honor representing East Greenwich and North Kingstown, South Kingstown, and Narragansett in the General Assembly these past almost 2 years. And I really look forward to continuing the work that we've started together, moving Rhode Island forward and getting rid of some of the old ways of doing things in Rhode Island and really moving us into a brighter future. I've enjoyed working with the really engaged constituents that I have in East Greenwich, as well as the local leaders on the town council and on the school committee. And I really look forward to working with them in the next 2 years as well. So if there are things that we did not cover tonight, where people would like to know where I stand on things, I would encourage them to visit my website at bridget4ri.com, where I have some issue statements there as well. And feel free, as always, to call or email me anytime if you have any questions. I'm always happy to chat. And, like I said, I voted this morning at the North Kingstown Town Hall. Early voting was quick and easy. And so I encourage everyone to get out there and vote early. Make sure you return your mail ballots. Or if, that's not your jam, get out there on November 3rd and vote at your regular polling location. But make sure you check out your polling location on vote.ri.gov.
Okay, that was a lot of information. Thank you, Bridget. Now we are to Charles, up to 2 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you for hosting this event this evening. What we have here in this, coming up here November 3rd, is basically the choice between anarchy, poverty, or do you want real change, okay? The progressive agenda is not working in Rhode Island, okay? They have, the rank and file Democrats made a deal with the devil and they lost seats, and now they are extremely worried that this group of individuals who has no business acumen, they have an extraordinarily bad ideology that hasn't created anything, hasn't done anything, and God help you if you don't go along with it. Because I can tell you from personal experience, they will come after you. I know conservatives that they come after. And here's a plea to the average citizen out there. You can't possibly look around this state and think that everything's great, that we are one social program away from utopia, or we're one more tax away from solvency, because we aren't. We need people who actually know how to do things. So if they want to mislead you and take you in a different direction, so be it. But for God's sake, be smart enough on November 3rd to realize that they have failed you, and they have failed you miserably. It is time to go in a different direction. And I hope that you do. November 3rd, go out and vote, make a choice, make a difference. Thank you.
Okay, well, I thank you both very much for coming on tonight and spending more than an hour, just over an hour with us. I really think it was helpful and I appreciate it. So thank you. I'm going to end the broadcast. Both this video and the House District 30 video will be available on our Facebook page, on our YouTube channel, and you guys can share them if you want. So again, thank you so much. And thanks to everyone who tuned in.
Good night.